The Vietnam War was one of the largest and bloodiest conflicts in modern history. This war took place between 1955 and 1975, involving two main countries, namely Vietnam and the United States. Even though it was called the Vietnam War, this conflict involved many parties, including United States allies such as South Korea, Australia, and other Western Bloc countries, as well as North Vietnam, which was supported by the Soviet Union, China and Eastern Bloc countries. This war is seen as a symbol of resistance to imperialism and hegemony. But it is also a clear example of the difficulties of military intervention in foreign territory with very different cultures and political conditions. In this war, how this war happened, how the United States was involved, and what impact it had on both countries, these are some important aspects that will be discussed further in this video. In the late 1950s to early 1960s, United States involvement in Vietnam was still in the form of economic and military assistance, including sending military advisors to train the South Vietnamese army. However, the situation escalated when in 1963, President Diem was assassinated in a coup secretly supported by the United States. After this coup, South Vietnam experienced political chaos, and unstable governments alternated in power. A major turning point in United States involvement was the Gulf of Tonkin Incident in 1964. This incident occurred when the American warship, USS Maddox, was allegedly attacked by North Vietnamese ships in the Gulf of Tonkin. With the approval of the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, the United States began sending large numbers of troops to Vietnam. By 1965, more than 180,000 American troops had been deployed, and at its peak, this number reached more than 500,000 military personnel. Massive military campaigns, including Operation Rolling Thunder, a 3-year strategic bombing campaign, were launched to weaken North Vietnamese forces. However, the war in Vietnam was not a conventional war that was easy to win. American soldiers faced an enemy who used guerrilla tactics, hiding in dense forests and using a network of underground tunnels. The North Vietnamese Army and Viet Cong guerrillas, communist forces in South Vietnam, were highly trained and had full support from the local population. They used in-depth knowledge of the battlefield and asymmetrical combat strategies to counter American forces that were superior in weaponry. Despite the United States' technological and military superiority, its forces have difficulty dealing with hidden insurgents who often attack by surprise. One of the Viet Cong's mainstay tactics was the use of landmines and deadly booby traps, which added to the challenges for American soldiers. Additionally, weather conditions and harsh terrain exacerbate the situation. Vietnam's dense jungle, as well as hot and humid weather, made military operations very difficult. Not only that, American troops also faced psychological problems, where feelings of despair and frustration due to enemy tactics that were difficult to predict caused troop morale to drop drastically. One of the most important events in the Vietnam War was the Tet Offensive, which occurred in 1968. During the Vietnamese New Year, Tet, North Vietnamese and Viet Cong troops launched large-scale attacks simultaneously against various cities and military bases in South Vietnam, including Saigon, now Ho Chi Minh City. This attack surprised American and South Vietnamese troops because during the ceasefire agreed for the Tet holiday, no one expected that a major attack would occur. Although in the end American and South Vietnamese forces succeeded in repelling the enemy and claiming tactical victory, the psychological and political impact of these attacks was enormous. After the Tet Offensive, many Americans began to question their country's involvement in Vietnam. The war that was initially thought to be winnable now looks like an endless war. In early 1973, after years of painstaking negotiations, the Paris Peace Agreement was signed. The United States agreed to withdraw all its troops from Vietnam, while North Vietnam and South Vietnam agreed to a ceasefire. However, this peace did not last long. In 1975, North Vietnam launched a final offensive that captured Saigon, ending the war and unifying Vietnam under communist rule.